Yo, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy GZTV. We are back with another video, and we are recording here late night. It is about 11 o'clock. Some of the first four games actually just ended, so it's nice to actually get the bracket updated a little bit. The thing is there's still two teams that are going to etch their way into the tournament tomorrow, but obviously I have to get the video out tomorrow or else people are going to be questioning me, because if I put the video out on Thursday and record, it's going to be kind of weird. Like, the video is already probably going to age poorly, so I might as well get this out on Wednesday, so which is tomorrow. So yeah, I'm gonna be filling out my bracket here. I already kind of preemptively have my picks, so the video is pretty prepared. It's not like I'm just gonna be on the spot like, what should I do? I'm gonna explain my picks, obviously, but yeah, we're just gonna go by region. We're gonna do East, whatever we decide. So yeah, it should be fun. We have the bracket right. Let's see, where is it? Right here. So the bracket's right here, kind of zoomed in so you guys could see my picks better. Let's get into the selection process, starting with the round of 32. I meant the round of, or the first round is what they call it. So the first round, we are going to start with the East. Let me open up my notes 1 second here. And I'm actually going to explain my metric. So every 4 matchups for the first round, I picked an upset. Yeah, for every 4 matchups, there's one upset that is going to happen, and I kind of went off of team record, which is kind of stupid, but that's kind of how I explain it. You can kind of follow along, look at the records. Obviously, I'm doing the Capital One bracket challenge, and they don't show that, so let's just get into it. And a big rule is that I'm never having a 1 seed lose. It's only happened twice, so UConn is winning for sure. Yeah, UConn's beating Stetson. There's no upset here. We have FAU beating Northwestern. FAU obviously making a huge tournament run last year. I don't think they're necessarily going to, because they have to play UConn. They're on a tough bid. UConn just came off of the national championship. But yeah, San Diego State's going to win against UAB. I always have some pretty high praise for San Diego State. Ivy League school, Yale, obviously Princeton made their run, I think a couple years ago, maybe last year, but Auburn's winning that. Auburn is way too good this year. And my big upset here is going to be Duquesne beating BYU. Down here, sorry, I gotta make sure I show it on the screen. Duquesne beating BYU. I don't really know much about either team, obviously, and I'm in Illinois, so there's a lot of fans of Illinois. I'm going to pick them, and it's actually funny because I go to SIUE, and they're in the same OVC as Morehead State, so that's kind of cool that they made their 14, because our conference sucks, obviously. But, yeah. And then my next upset is going to be Drake beating Washington State. Washington State, this is their first tournament in probably 4 years or so, and Drake's actually a really good team. Like, they've had a really good run. I don't see Iowa State getting upsetted. I think they've played a hell of a basketball season so far. So there's that. That is going to be my picks for the East. I'm not really sure how long this video is going to be, but let's just roll with it. So now we're going to move on to the first round for the South. And again, like I said before, I don't see a 1 seed losing, so we're going to go with Houston. Okay, I kind of figured it out. Moving on, let's see, we're in the South. I kind of did this backwards, but we have, let me just scroll up. Well, we have Nebraska beating Texas A&M. Those are always tough, those kind of matchups. But yeah. And then I have a huge upset here. This is one of the bigger upsets of the tournament. I feel like they're going to be a Cinderella story. We have James Madison beating Wisconsin. I know Wisconsin's really good. They made a run of the Big Ten, but again, we have to have upsets in this tournament, or else it's not March Madness. Looking at Duke with my boy Duke in Vermont, my boy Jared McCain, I have them moving on in the next round where they're going to play against James Madison. And then a lot of people have it. NC State beating Texas Tech. I don't know if they're going to be a Cinderella story. I feel like if they make it far enough in the tournament, they can be considered that. So NC State beating Texas Tech. I'm kind of going quick with these picks. I'm not going to lie. It kind of sucks. But Kentucky's beating Oakland. Rob Dillingham is my dog, man. I love Rob Dillingham. He's one of my favorite players in college basketball. Just kind of watching him this season has been a really fun experience. So obviously Colorado and Boise State are going to be determined tomorrow, but I don't think that really matters. I'm going with Florida. They play in the tough SEC. And Marquette's beating Western Kentucky. Marquette, these 2 seeds in this tournament are actually like really fucking good. Like, I know they're supposed to be because they're a 2 seed, but man, I got to give it to them. Marquette's really tough. I really like Marquette. So yeah, my upset teams are going to be NC State and James Madison. I don't have any like 2-15 ones. I don't have anything super absurd, even though I probably could predict that. But yeah, let's move on to the West, I think we have next. So looking at the West here, we have North Carolina. Or wait, where did I do this? Yeah, the West. We have North Carolina. They're going to win. Yeah. Again, like I said, well, Wagner actually won tonight, so they etched their way in there. North Carolina's winning. Mississippi State and Michigan State's probably one of the tougher matchups in the first round to kind of predict. A lot of people are picking Michigan State over Mississippi State. I'm going to go with Mississippi State. Mississippi State's pretty solid. I've heard some pretty solid things about their team. Michigan State actually has the odds here, which is interesting because I think they're the only like lower seed that has odds to win. Even though it's an 8-9, it doesn't really matter. The 8-9s are usually interchangeable. They're all tough matchups to predict. St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. You're going to learn a little bit about my admiration and kind of my appreciation for St. Mary's here. Yeah, St. Mary's over Grand Canyon. I have them going really far. You are going to find that out soon. Bama playing Charleston. Let's see. Yeah, this is my upset here. Charleston is an upset team for me. I have them beating Alabama and going on to play St. Mary's in the next round. And I don't know what's going on with my upset teams being back-to-back, but we have New Mexico beating Clemson. That's a bit crazy. I don't think Clemson's really having that good of a year. Again, I know they're in the SEC, and the SEC is really tough. We have 2 SEC teams going down, 2 high-seed SEC teams going down in the first round, which is super interesting. But New Mexico's really good. Like, I think they've actually had a really good tournament run. Let me just check my phone real quick, because we're already kind of going fast for this video. But New Mexico, I think they've actually had a really good run in the tournament. Yeah, they beat San Diego State to win that tournament, so they're actually looking really good. Moving on to Baylor and Colgate. I know Colgate has been an upset team in the past, but I'm going to go with Baylor. Dayton, Nevada has actually been a pretty tough one for a lot of people, but I'm just going to go with Dayton. That could go either way. You could pick Nevada, Dayton, whatever, and honestly, I don't know. That's a really good matchup. Now we have Arizona and Long Beach State. I don't have any 1s or 2 seeds losing in the first round. But yeah, Long Beach State had an interesting, I think they were talking about it on the tournament show. Long Beach State actually had a really good story kind of coming into it. So that would be interesting to see them make an upset. We've seen like Oral Roberts beat Ohio State. We've seen all sorts of 15 seeds beat 2 seeds. So yeah, it could get interesting. But Arizona, I have super high praise for. Go Wildcats, man. I'm not even a fan of them, but I just say that. So let's move on to the Midwest, which is the final region we are going to need to complete our bracket for the first round. So getting into the first round for the Midwest region, the talk of the town, one of the more controversial teams in recent tournament history, we have some frauds, honestly, recently with Purdue. And Purdue has had a lot of questionable losses this year, but they're playing Grambling or Montana State. There's no way. I think they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson last year, who was a first 4 team. One of these teams, actually, which is insane to think about. But, nah. Moving on to Utah State and TCU. People are really high on Utah State, and I'm pretty sure I'm the same way, to be honest with you. I have Utah State. I'm actually pretty high on Utah State. We'll talk about the round of 32 and kind of what I think. But, yeah, Utah State taking this one home as we get into Gonzaga and McNeese. And honestly, this has upset potential. I've seen people pick McNeese in plenty of brackets. I've seen a lot of analysts talk about it. But I'm going with Gonzaga. Gonzaga has a storied history in March Madness, and I think it's almost right that they get this W. Now, here is where the first upset comes in. Kansas-Samford. I'm picking Samford. And not just because of the injuries for Kansas. I just see a lot in the Samford team. And honestly, but it was in between McNeese or Samford for who I wanted to win that. I knew, like, logically based on my metric that one of those teams had to win, and we're going to pick Samford to beat Kansas. A lot of 13 seeds, a lot of 11 and 12 seeds are kind of going to be my upset teams. Nothing really above that. A lot of people, for South Carolina, Oregon, a lot of people are picking Oregon, but I'm just going to stick with my gut and go with South Carolina. Okay, we're good. Oh, shoot, my bad. I did not mean to do that. Oh, goodness. We'll fix that later. Creighton and Akron. Yeah, Creighton's going to win. Creighton is a super dominant team. They're absolutely insane. They're really good, got size, everything. So now we know that Colorado State's actually going to be playing Texas in the first round. And I'm not going to lie. At first, I picked Virginia to beat Texas. But I'm going to change that. I'm going to pick Texas to beat Colorado State in the first round. I think Texas matches up way better with a team like Colorado State. Obviously, Colorado State beating Virginia, it would lead one to say, oh, they're the better team. But I just think Virginia had a really bad game. If they would have won, I probably would have picked them to upset. But no, we're going with Texas there. And then, yeah, I know. I think the St. Peter's kind of narrative is really interesting, but I can't do it. Tennessee's just too good of a damn team to shut them down, so we're just going to go with that. And yeah, that is going to conclude the first round. So out here, there you guys go. Tennessee beating St. Peter's. So now we are going to start the round of 32 for, I believe it is the East. Yes, East region. So we are going to start with UConn and FAU. I don't see UConn falling anytime soon. Just going to let you guys know that right now. I have UConn going really far and possibly winning it. We will get to that in a second. I'm still kind of torn at who I want to actually win this. And really the only upset I'm going to pick here, although not really that major, we are going to go San Diego State is going to beat Auburn. I think San Diego State has had such a good history in the tournament, and they've always just done really well. So we're going to pick them to beat Auburn. I don't see Duquesne beating Illinois, so shout out to Illinois. They're going to win their first two tournament games, and I don't see Drake beating Iowa State. Again, like we always say with March Madness, anything can kind of happen. But yeah, we're going to have Iowa State and Illinois, a Big 12, Big 10 matchup. Moving on to the Sweet 16. So yeah, I know these are going to be really short segments. It's going to get shorter as we get through the fucking tournament, obviously. I'm kind of speed running this. I don't really want it to be a speed run video, but we're going to do it. And to be fair, Illinois is usually a tournament choker at times, but they can beat Duquesne. Surely they could. And surely Iowa State could beat Drake despite them being tough. I could see FAU beating UConn, and I could see Auburn beating, like, obviously, once you get to these sort of rounds, it kind of goes either way, but nah. We're going to roll with this. Let's move on. So now we're actually going to go in order with my notes. We are going to look at the West. And in the West, we have UNC being the big runner. Despite who wins the 8-9 seed there, I don't think they're good enough to beat North Carolina, so I'm just going to say that right there. UNC is going to win. I think Armando Bacot is still on the team. He's been in college for 6 years, damn near, I would say, maybe even 7. So yeah, and like I said earlier with St. Mary's, I have really high praise for St. Mary's in this tournament, and you're going to find something kind of insane moving forward. I have a pretty crazy Final Four, which I feel like a lot of people want to have because this is an upset-filled tournament. So really interesting stuff there. So St. Mary's is going to win, North Carolina is going to win, and I have New Mexico beating Baylor. I know we're gonna have some double-digit teams make the Sweet 16. We have to have Cinderella stories, and one of them is going to be New Mexico. I have them beating Baylor. They're good, man. They beat a 5th seed, and we're talking about playing 6 and 3 seeds, so it's not like they're playing anything too far out of their reach, you know. Dayton, Arizona. I think Arizona is clearly going to win this. They're probably going to stomp Dayton. Again, it is March Madness. You never know what's going to happen. But I have my Sweet 16 for this side being North Carolina versus St. Mary's and New Mexico against Arizona. So let's move on to next. We're going to talk about the South region. So looking at the South region for the round of 32, first off, we have Houston versus Nebraska. I think I have all of my 1 seeds going to the Sweet 16 at least, which is kind of unusual for a lot of people because they want to kind of find their fraudulent teams. But yeah, we're not doing that. And my upset for the Sweet 16, it's ridiculous, but we have James Madison beating Duke. Like, I have to take risk here. James Madison is going to the Sweet 16. They're going to beat Duke. Screw it. Duke has been known. They haven't really been known for it. They've obviously been a great program throughout history, but they have been kind of known to like not be the greatest in the NCAA tournament, despite always being the top of the line. So that should be interesting. We have Kentucky beating NC State. As much as I want NC State to be a Cinderella story, I just don't see it for the sake of this bracket. So we are going to go with Kentucky. And honestly, Florida has a pretty decent chance of beating Marquette, but I don't see it. Again, Marquette is just such a dominant school. We're going with Marquette, baby. So for this side, we have Houston versus James Madison and Kentucky versus Marquette. So far, not too many upsets going on in this bracket. Obviously, James and Madison making the Sweet 16 is kind of insane. But yeah, again, I know these parts of the video are super short. Let's move on to our final region for the Sweet 16, which is the Midwest. Up next, we have the Midwest region for the round of 32. And yeah, so first we have Purdue and Utah State. Now, I've seen a lot of people pick Utah State in this matchup. I'm not completely opposed to that, and I don't think Purdue's going to win at all by any means, but I think Zach Edey and the gang have to kind of get some vengeance. So yeah, we're going with Purdue. Gonzaga is playing Samford. I don't see the Cinderella story necessarily happening, so we're going to go with Gonzaga. And actually, funny enough, South Carolina versus Creighton, that is going to be my upset team. We have the 6th seed, South Carolina, punching their ticket to the Sweet 16. So, shout out to South Carolina. It's been a while since we've seen some, the women's team's obviously doing great, but for the men's team, it's been a while since we've seen some real success for them in March Madness. So, it'd be really cool to see them at least make the Sweet 16. And I'm just gonna have Tennessee beating Texas. So Tennessee is going to be in the Sweet 16 playing South Carolina, and then we're gonna have Purdue versus Gonzaga. 2 really, really good matchups. I think the Midwest could be one of the more interesting, just because Purdue. I'm not gonna say they're frauds because they're obviously amazing, like every single year. They're not a great March Madness team, but you have to give them some credit to an extent because they're consistently number 1 every single year. And they play in the Big Ten, arguably a top three conference in college basketball. So, yeah, we have Purdue, Gonzaga, South Carolina, Tennessee. Let's move on to the Sweet 16. UConn versus San Diego State. Again, it's kind of awkward because I don't have to give much thought to this because I literally have them written down on one of my school notebooks. But we have UConn beating San Diego State. UConn is going to be unstoppable in this tournament. I'm telling you that right now. They proved it last year. I know on any given day on March Madness, your bracket could be busted, but UConn is punching their ticket to the Elite Eight without a doubt. And for Illinois, Iowa State, I've seen a lot of people pick Iowa State in this matchup, but I'm going to go for the locals. I'm going to go for Illinois making it to the Elite Eight. I think this is the farthest they've made it in a tournament. This would be the farthest they've made it in a tournament. I don't know how long. They're really good. Terrence Shannon's a weapon. Marcus Damask. Obviously, Coleman Hawkins isn't great, but he's been on the team for a long time, and he's been kind of a beast. They have a lot of guys that can come in and step up and be big scorers. So I'm pretty high on Illinois here. I have them going to the Elite Eight. Yeah, let's move on to the West. Let's move on to the West. So here we are with the South region for the Sweet 16, where we have North Carolina versus St. Mary and New Mexico against Arizona. And I'm going to be honest, again, like I said, I am super high on St. Mary's. They do play in the WCC, which isn't the greatest conference in the world. I think them and Gonzaga are the only teams out of their conference to make it. I don't know why Gonzaga's in the WCC, by the way. I'm kind of questioning that. But we're going with it. We're going to drop a bomb here and say St. Mary's is taking the dub over North Carolina. I know North Carolina is a fantastic basketball program, but yeah, we have St. Mary's going to the Elite Eight. I think they have a really big chance. They have great shooters. They're a really good program, private school, super disciplined team. And yeah, as much as I want to be on the bandwagon for the Cinderella story, I have to go Arizona here. Arizona is kind of under the radar. I feel like they're, especially for a 2 seed, they're not as talked about, compared to we'll see what are the other ones, like Tennessee and Iowa State. Marquette's, to be fair, Marquette's also a little, not as talked about. But yeah, Arizona is super underrated, and I feel like they're going to creep their way to really good things in this tournament. So yeah, we have St. Mary's versus Arizona for the Elite Eight matchup for this West region, not South, West region. How is North Carolina in the West region? I don't even know how they structure that. I don't even know how they come up with the tournament or anything. I'm a pretty casual guy on this. I'm not really that big of a college basketball fan. Yeah. Actually, let's just take a chance and preface that. I am not a huge college basketball fan. So if I look delusional here, I apologize. So yeah, we have St. Mary's and Arizona playing against each other in the Elite Eight. Let's move on to the Southern region. Here we go. We have the Southern matchups lined up. We have Houston against, crazy enough, James Madison. I don't think anyone's going to really have James Madison going to the Sweet 16, but here we are. But unfortunately, their tournament run's going to end. Got teams like Houston and UConn, I'm super duper high on in this tournament. Yeah, those are the two beasts. Those are the teams to beat. If you beat them, most likely your path is going to be so much easier. But then again, if say Illinois beats UConn, they still have to worry about Houston on the other side. So I don't know. Kentucky and Marquette, I am going to go Kentucky. I feel like they're so storied. Coach Calipari is such a great coach. Obviously, Marquette is super dominant, and they've been absolutely going crazy this year. But Kentucky just has that, it has a vibe to it. It's winning basketball. I don't know what it is. I don't even know why I'm explaining myself here. Picks are picks. It's kind of luck, to be honest. But Kentucky is going to take it over the Marquette as kind of my mini upset. Again, I try to include as many upsets as possible. It's kind of funny how we have the 1 and 3 seeds battling. There's a lot of parallels between East and South region because they both kind of have that dominant 1 seed, and plus I have the 3 seed making it all the way to the Elite Eight. So usually people would have Marquette and Iowa State make it. Honestly, actually, I think a lot of people have Kentucky making it pretty far. Kentucky might be a sleeper 3 seed. I don't know. So it's just going to be really interesting. It's going to be so entertaining to see kind of how this tournament fleshes out. But we have Houston and Kentucky being the Elite Eight matchup for this region. Let's move on to the Midwest. Looking at the Midwest, we have Purdue versus Gonzaga, and then we have South Carolina versus Tennessee. And like I said before, Purdue is one of those teams that likes to choke come tournament time, and it's not going to be any different here. I have Gonzaga upsetting them, punching their ticket to the Elite Eight. I think it's almost right. It's right. It's almost right that a team like Gonzaga would beat them. And I'm pretty high on the South Carolina team, but I feel like just Tennessee is just undeniably good. So we are going to go with that. I know this was really quick, but yeah, Gonzaga just has to do it, man. They have to be the upset team. They kind of have to be the team to beat Purdue. And if you're going to make a cliche bracket and have Purdue kind of go out early, this is almost the time where you should do that. So, yeah, that's really all I have to say for this segment. And obviously, again, Tennessee is just so dominant. And they're kind of expected to make it this far in the tournament, based on projections. And kind of based on where they're seated at, people kind of expect them to make it at least this far in the tournament. So, I'm just going to say the same thing. You got to kind of go with the expected at some point. So let's move on to the Elite Eight. So I guess at this point in the video, we can get a little more in depth with it. We have the Elite Eight for the East region, and that is going to be Illinois versus UConn. Now look, I know I don't know. It's really hard for a team to go back to back, but I don't even know if I should be contemplating that in this round because UConn, like, I feel, like, genuinely feel this. UConn is that much better than Illinois that I have to. I have to pick UConn here. Like, there's no doubt about it. I think UConn is going to the Final Four. I think they're just too damn good of a team to set to the side and be like, oh, well, they could lose the games early. Like, no, I have that much praise for UConn. I think UConn is easily punching their ticket to the Final Four. Now, Shannon is going to put on a show, and it's kind of crazy. You know, we fought those allegations kind of towards the beginning of the year, and now he's one of the best players in college basketball. So it's really cool to see that for him, and it's a really cool storyline kind of entering the tournament, but UConn is just so damn good. I just cannot see them losing even that early in the tournament, even though we are 3 rounds in now. So, yeah, let's move on to the West, where we have St. Mary's versus Arizona, and this is a super interesting matchup. St. Mary's is such a tough team. And again, at the 2 seed even, Arizona is extremely underrated. I do understand that. But with that being said, I have such high praise for St. Mary's, man. This is one of the crazier picks of the bracket. So trust me, it doesn't stop here. It's not going to stop here. We actually have, well, you guys could probably figure it out. No, I'm not even going to give you guys that hint. You guys got to keep watching the video. But I've watched a lot, like more than a lot of other college basketball teams. I have watched a lot of St. Mary's games this year, and dude, they look really fucking good. So I have them going to the Final Four, where they will face UConn. Obviously, we will talk about the Final Four and the championship here in a moment. But St. Mary's is tough. They teams like them and that's actually funny. Them and Gonzaga are in the WCC, and I'm actually about to pick. You know, we'll get to it. Again, I'm kind of spoiling stuff to you guys, but let's get into Houston and Kentucky. So here we have it. We have Houston and Kentucky for the South, I believe. That is going to be the Elite Eight matchup. And again, like my very similar logic to me picking UConn, Houston is just so good of a team that I cannot see them losing even this early. I think they're going to take down Kentucky, and I'm pretty sure you guys kind of know what my championship game is going to be based on how much praise I have for these teams. But dude, Houston is so nice. Like the 1 seeds get disrespected way too much. I understand it for Purdue because they're kind of tournament frauds, but with like the case of Houston, like dude, no way. I'm not picking them to lose like anytime soon. So they're going to continue on the dance. They're going to take it to the Final Four. Let's move on to the Midwest. So for the Midwest, we have Gonzaga against Tennessee taking each other on here in the Elite Eight. And trust me, I put a decent amount of thought into these. Like and honestly, I mean, compared to last year, I didn't really take into account kind of the team comparisons and the stats and the recent runs. I kind of just tried to use a weird random metric to kind of try to fucking beat the Matrix. Shout out to Andrew Tate. Here, man, we're going with Gonzaga. WCC on top, man. The WCC is about to shock the world. Gonzaga, because they're 2 best teams, Gonzaga and St. Mary's, although they're not some of the best teams in college. I mean, they are. They're easily each top 20 teams in college basketball. Like, let's not get that confused. Gonzaga, man. Gonzaga is tough. They're really good. I've watched a couple of their games. They've looked fraudulent at times, of course. They've had a couple bad losses, like outside of conference. Like, again, I guess if we want to actually look at some of the recent games, they lost to St. Mary's in the champion. Like, that's the only team they could even lose to in the WCC is St. Mary's. If you look at some of their recent games, I mean, all they're losing to is St. Mary's. They beat every other team. They had a really bad loss to Santa Clara, to be fair. That was just an upset game. Like, what good teams have they lost to? Like, Washington's not that good. Obviously, UConn is super understandable for them to lose. San Diego State is pretty understandable for them to lose because those two are kind of on the same tier. Purdue, they lost to Purdue. Like, they lose to good teams, which is probably going to lead to their downfall in the Final Four. But, dude, they have had a really good run this year. Like, they play super, super solid teams. Like, again, you're playing Purdue. You're going up against UConn. Those are 2 1 seeds. You go up against, I mean, they went up against Kentucky. You know what I mean? And they've played St. Mary's all year. So like, I don't know. It's a really interesting one. I think Gonzaga is going to punch their ticket to the Final Four. Speaking of Final Four, let's get it. So here we go, getting into the Final Four. We have UConn versus St. Mary's on one side, and we have Houston and Gonzaga on the other side. And I'm kind of pick these all in the same video because there's no really regions anymore. These are region championship teams. So the UConn is my best team in the West or East. St. Mary's is my best team in the West. Houston is my best team in the South, and Gonzaga is my best team in the Midwest. First off, you know what? Let's just put it out there. The 1 seeds. I know. It's really like, it's almost like taboo in March Madness tournaments or bracket predictions to put 2 1 seeds in the championship game because you have to have a slight Cinderella story, even if it's like a 2, 3, or 4 seed to make it to the championship game. Obviously, San Diego State did it last year, and I think they were about a 5 seed last year as well. Last year was just crazy. Last year was just in like a tournament of insane proportions. But I don't think there's really any debate here. The WCC can't compete with the Big East. Like, it just comes down to conferences here. Like, this is really what we're looking at. It comes down to conferences. I don't even know who I have. I still don't know who I have winning this tournament. I'm going to have to... That's really the only big decision we have to make for the video. But, like, we're talking about the Big East. They have Marquette, Creighton, and UConn. 3 amazing teams. Obviously, no other team made the tournament for theirs, but, dude, UConn is UConn. Like, we're just going to take some time here. They've beat Texas. They lost to Kansas, but they've beat UNC. They've literally beat Gonzaga, and St. Mary's is a pretty comparable team. UConn gets the best of them. They are UConn. What am I talking about? They've beat Gonzaga, UNC. They beat Creighton. Creighton's a really good team. They beat Marquette. They lost to Creighton once, but they've beat Marquette. I think they won their whole tournament. I think, yeah, they did, and they literally won all those games somewhat comfortably. I guess St. John's was a bit of a shocker. St. John's was playing really good that game. But, okay, I'm sorry. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Getting into Houston, kind of looking at their season. Again, I'm a college casual, so I have to kind of go back and look. We're talking about Big 12. We're talking about a conference with Iowa State, Baylor, Texas Tech, BYU, Kansas, Texas, TCU. All 8 of those teams made the tournament, and yet Houston is the best team out of them by a couple of games. Like, there's a couple game discrepancy between, Iowa State and Houston. Obviously, Iowa State has gotten their number a couple of times, so maybe I should have had Iowa State go a little farther. But dude, Houston this year has been incredible, as they have been for the last couple of years. I mean, their recruitment programs and stuff have gone absolutely insane. Looking at some of the teams they have beat, they've beat Texas Tech, they've beat BYU, they lost to Kansas, they beat Iowa State once, they beat Baylor. They came back and beat Kansas. Obviously they've beat Houston, and they lost in the whatever, but I'm not going to lie, I'm just extremely excited for this tournament to start, man. But let's get into the championship game and call it a vid. So looking here at the championship game, we have the 2 1 seeds. Again, it seems kind of taboo to have UConn versus Houston, but we're going to go with it. And I was kind of looking at this, man. I'm going to have to do a coin toss. Hold up, let me go get a coin. We're introducing a new metric, the coin. You guys can't even see that. Oh my god, that's such bad quality. That is tails. You can kind of tell it's like a building. And hold on, this is heads. You can kind of see the president head. So I'm going to flip a coin, okay? We're introducing the classic, the good old metric, the freaking coin toss. We have heads for UConn, tails for Houston. Let's go. Heads for UConn. Heads it is. You guys can see it for proof. Oh, fuck. You can't even see that. It's heads. We got heads. You know what that means? UConn, baby. We're going to have to do this tiebreaker, I guess. Do I really care about this that much? So we're going to have UConn. Let's see. We're going to go 66 to 61. That's going to be my tiebreaker. We have UConn winning in the championship against Houston 66 to 61. I think no matter who makes the championship, it's not just for TV ratings, because I don't think college basketball is rigged at all. But yeah, it's going to be a close game regardless. It's going to be super entertaining. I have UConn going back to back. I've actually did some research, and like Al Horford and Joakim Noah's Florida team went back to back. You had like Grant Hill, Christian Laettner's team going back to back with Duke. You've had all sorts of really good teams. I think I don't know. I think there's one more really major example that's like super relevant. But dude, we have to do it, man. UConn is beating Houston. I'm going to have to get this app on my phone so I can keep track of it. But yeah, that is going to do it for the video. I don't know if that was a good video to you guys, but it has been your boy GZTV. Again, and actually last year in the comments, interestingly enough, we did updates as the tournament was kind of happening. So as the tournament goes on, I'm going to give you guys like, I'm 1 for 1, or I'm 1 for 2, 1 for 3, well, whatever, however far we are. I only have one class on Thursday, which is fire. So yeah, that'll be really dope. I'm going to be watching as much as I can. Obviously, I have school and I have to do YouTube content at the same time and all that stuff. But like, comment, subscribe. This has been your boy. We're done with the tournament. If you have any thoughts, if you have any like second opinions you want to give on some of my picks, let me know. But again, you're not going to be right. So what does it matter? I'm not going to be right. You're not going to be right. Why does it matter? But yeah, here you are, the NBA fan making a, that's probably going to be the title of the video actually, the NBA fan making a March Madness bracket. Peace out, everyone.